Hey guys, what's up? If you have questions about the future, join the club. If you're wondering about what's going to happen with economics, what should you be doing with your money, the Great Reset, the World Economic Forum, and so on and so forth, so do I. And I don't talk about it a ton on Cooper stuff because I am not an expert. But I got an exciting episode today. We're going to be talking about this. I got a special guest, Tyler Wall from SD Bullion. We're going to be giving you guys a special offer at the end too, but I think you'll find this conversation interesting. Let's jump in on Cooper stuff. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Cooper Stuff. We have something different for today, which I'm excited about because we spend a lot of time on Cooper Stuff, of course, talking about the chaos of the world that we're in right now, lots of civil implications of political censorship and cancel culture, the volatility of the world. One of the things we don't talk a lot about is the economic instability of what's happening now. We just had Afghanistan. I read stuff about the China housing market, and a lot of that stuff is frankly above me, but I understand it enough to know that we really need to be talking about it. So I got a cool guest on here today that I'm excited that is a lot more knowledgeable about all of this, but I do think that there are economic implications along with all of the other liberty implications that we've been talking about. So I'm excited to have a guest on here, and he is the owner of SD Bullion, which is precious metals, but also he has a background in pharmaceutics and things like that. It's going to be an interesting conversation. So I'm going to introduce him now. This is Tyler. And Tyler, why don't you introduce us and tell us whatever you want to tell us about yourself?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on, John. I really appreciate it. So yeah, my name is Tyler Wall, and I started SD Bullion about 8 years ago. Before that, I was a pharmacist. I graduated from the University of Toledo. And one of the things that, that led this business to start was I was talking to one of my friends one day in the computer lab. And I kind of leaned over to look at what he was looking at on his computer screen. And I saw looking at precious metal prices. And I said, what are you looking at that? What are you looking at that for? And he looked over on my screen, and I was looking at stocks and, mutual funds. And he's like, well, what are you looking at that for? So that led us to, discuss probably over the next 5 years, our different economical views of the world. And, he was pitching precious metals. I was saying, yeah, but that doesn't pay a yield. We should be looking at stocks. And he would always ask me, what are you doing in pharmacy school if you just care about these finances and you inevitably want to start a business one day? And I said, well, I need a job after college, and I want a stable income. So that's where I kind of got started. I was in the pharmacy for about 12 years, and then we started this precious metals business on the side, which has grown from one employee to the third largest precious metal retailer in the country. So I definitely appreciate you having me on. But that's a little bit of background of the business and where I came from. And then, I saw John recently had the vaccine podcast. That was your last podcast that I listened to before you came on the show. And it's a really interesting world we live in with the shortages and now the vaccine mandates. And I'm aligned with kind of your thoughts. And it seems like a lot of your viewers seem to support freedom and liberty, stuff that it's kind of like the majority do not even support these days.
Yeah. Yes. Liberty and freedom, the things that we used to be kind of into.
Right.
We used to be into it. A bunch of people died to give us the privilege. And it is a very strange time that so many people, I really think there was a generation that grew up not being taught about why that it really even matters. Sometimes I wonder if life has been so good that we don't really know why those liberties matter. Almost like the idea of, well, everybody kind of likes liberty. Everybody kind of likes it all around the world. And we know that that's actually not true. It is not true that everybody's going to come to the same conclusions on liberty and this, that, and the other. So you're right. It is kind of a strange thing. So do you want to tell us very quickly how you and me got connected? Because it's kind of weird.
So part of our business has always been to support, Christian ministries. And one of the things that we do is support the normal way, where we donate 10% towards tithing to, churches and small organizations and community. Lots of times we don't advertise, hey guys, we're sponsoring this organization. We just do it, under the cover. But one of the things that came to us recently was this concept when, COVID hit last year and everything started to go down. We saw there a need to support Christian artists and Christian voices inside of this space. I went to a Citizen Way conference or a Citizen Way concert in, I think it was earlier this year. And I got to listen to Ben Calhoun and talk about how COVID affected all the artists and the musicians in the community. And it really hit me pretty hard that I didn't think about this sector that's, was losing their paychecks and losing their bands and losing all their support, while everybody was supposedly supposed to be locked down in their house for an indefinite period of time. It's supposed to be a week, then it was supposed to be a month, and then it was like, okay, we're just gonna keep on locking it down for the rest of our lives. And I talked to Ben after the show. We had a call together, and I said, hey, I feel strongly about supporting these voices in this community, whether that be through music or whether that be through podcasts like the one you have. Do you have any ideas? He mentioned your podcast, which I hadn't listened to previously, but I listened to a few episodes. I said, this is our target market. I want to put aside some money here to support voices like yourself, and furthermore, get our message out about economics to other Christians, because what we see inside of our company and why we started this business, about 10 years ago, was this idea that, what the federal government's doing is just bailing out everybody and anything and just tossing money around most of the time for votes, right? I mean, we've made this, precedent that we're not going to let anything fail. If there's a hurricane, if there's an illness, if there's anything you can think of, a drought, windstorm, et cetera, a bank that runs their business poorly, a real estate company in China that doesn't make the right decisions as a company. What we're going to do is we're just going to print money and we're just going to hand it out to everybody. And there's this majority of people, I believe, out there. I mean, it's a slight majority, I still think to today, that think there's going to be no consequences for running an economic, program like that. So for me, it's a twofold thing. One is supporting people like you with a message, and two, also educating some of your listeners about the economic stuff that you may not talk about all the time on Cooper stuff, and saying like, hey, this is great, but let's add this extra piece of knowledge to your listeners or your viewership to understand, like, hey, let's think about the economics here. Think about what's going to happen. Everybody's seeing these supply shortages right now. Everybody's seeing prices go up. And I think now is a good time to be talking about the economic forecast of the next, 3, 5, 10 years, and how you might want to position some of your assets to, safeguard from whatever might come down the road.
What's interesting about that is that depending on what news source you watch, there are people that are like, things are really bad. We have inflation, the things you just mentioned, supply shortages. It could mean this. I mean, I will just tell you anecdotally, and I know that we don't want to base our lives on anecdotal evidence. I get it, but I will tell you anecdotally, because I travel now for a living, we're on tour, and every single city I go to, literally without fail, I'm talking about 100% of the time, there's no one working. Right. I mean, you go to a restaurant, and we went to a restaurant last night. We ordered appetizers, right? Well, we ordered a meal, but we ordered an appetizer. It was like literally almost an hour. And then they finally come out with the appetizers and the meal at the same time. There's nobody working there. It takes you 20 minutes to get a soda, Depending on which news source you watch, people are saying that, or they're saying the opposite. No, actually the economy is doing really great. We have record number of, growth, record number of this. I have been watching the Dow, the stock market. I've been wondering myself. Well, I guess in the last week, things are changing a little bit now. But I've been wondering, when is the bottom going to fall out of this? Because with my eyes, I see all this other stuff happening. I mean, what is your take on that? I mean, obviously, we know that the media is always going to be in the mainstream is going to be in the bag for the leftists. We know that, but why is that?
Yeah. Well, I think, the one metric you can look at, right, for me is understanding national debt, right? So our national debt as a country, we're now over $28 trillion that we owe. And there's, I encourage your readers, go look online and search for a national debt calculator and see what pops up. There's a couple websites that have the real time count of how much we owe, and it's going up it's like $1,000 like every second, like tens of thousands of dollars every second. The thing is moving so quickly. I've turned it on before for some of my friends and family. They're like, "What? Why is it going up so fast?" I'm like, "That's how fast we're going into more debt." And there's this like false sense of perception of, okay, if everybody took their credit card out and you had a limited credit limit for a period of time, and you go out there, you buy a convertible, you go buy a big house, you go buy all your groceries, you buy some nice clothes. Everybody's like, wow, John's he must be really successful. He's got all this stuff. He looks great. But in the back end, the credit card companies, like, you're racking up, tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars of credit card debt. When they finally say, okay, guys, no more debt. Now we want you to pay back, the credit we gave you. Then all of a sudden it's like, well, I don't have any money for that. And then you lose everything, right? Mm-hmm. So we're in this false sense of perception right now as a country where we think that we have an unlimited spending budget. And it's been going like this for a long time. I mean, one of the other things we see a lot in this industry is like these financial advisors. The people that go talk about it on, the mainstream news and, the different stock market channels. And they act like things are going good and things are going great and everybody should invest in the stock market, right? Because the stock market keeps going up. Well, there's a reason for that too. I mean, they look at a period usually over the last, say, 100 some years. They look at 100 some years. It's like, well, look at our returns over the last, 100 some years. Well, if you align that with, and you draw that, put that on the graph with your federal national debt, you understand that we've been going in debt for that period of time too. And when you see federal debt go up and you see a Federal Reserve, like we have a Federal Reserve as a country, we don't even control our own money. That's not really ours. The Federal Reserve, which is an independent organization, controls our money. When you see them doing quantitative easing, which they are buying assets right now, just outright buying assets by printing more money, of course the stock market's going to go up. And then furthermore, you have this, this Reddit craze going on right now. I'm not sure if you saw this, but there's these people on Reddit that are picking out stocks. You got the GameStop, you got these other stocks, and there's so much money out there right now because we're doing, the checks. We're passing out $2,000 checks or whatever checks it is for the COVID stuff, and these guys are turning around and they're buying stocks, and like, well, they're targeting stocks, and that just fuels the retail public to buy more stocks. And then you got what we've mentioned previously is that when you're willing to bail out anything and everything for a system to not collapse, when you're willing to bail out banks, real estate companies, et cetera, the risk reward is no longer in play. Like the risk of starting your own business, if you know you're going to be bailed out by somebody, I mean, why not, right? I mean, the risk of buying a stock, I mean, they're not going to fail if it affects enough people. Then we're going to just print more money to bail it out. So the risk reward now is like, well, geez, we're creating inflation. The national debt's going extremely high. What can I do to basically protect my purchasing power? If I have a few dollars under my bed at home, am I going to leave it in dollars, or am I just going to buy anything because everything's going up in value, but my dollar is purchasing less and less every single day? And this is not a new phenomenon. It's been going on for hundreds of years. Like, people think now that the real estate's an appreciating asset. I don't know. I mean, does anybody want to buy a new house, or do they want to buy a used house? I haven't heard of anybody tell me, well, besides some of the quality workmanship of an old house, I haven't heard anybody say, well, man, I'm going to buy a 50-year-old house instead of picking a new house. But we're taught that houses go up in value. Why do houses go up in value? Well, it's only because the debt and the things that it takes to build the house increase in price. Over the last 100 years, houses have appreciated substantially, have increased substantially, but not because the lumber that they took to build the house or the concrete. It's not because it's aged and it's got better. It's because of inflation. And when we look at our market specifically, and you look at precious metals, you're like, well, I need to buy a house. I need to buy a house. Well, you look at a house compared to gold, right? Which is stuff that we sell as a company, the third largest precious metal retailer in the world. And the houses are actually depreciated versus gold by 97% over the last 100 years. So it's all in perspective of like, what are you comparing things to, right? I mean, that was a loaded question. I'm sure you understand, but I mean, at the end of the day, I think people right now are making the decision like, well, if I can sit at home and get paid money by the government, they're making a decision on, hey, what's the value of my time? If I can make a little bit, a few less dollars to stay at home and maybe do some cash business, maybe go babysit, maybe, I don't know what they're doing for cash business, but maybe they could do something on the side, get their checks and have their whole day to themselves, do whatever they want. I mean, of course people are going to do that compared to going to get a job. So it's a mess out there, John. I mean, we're seeing a lot more people get into precious metals over the last year and a half. Our business has been thriving, right? I mean, because some people that have been exposed to this economic stuff, they understand that precious metals for thousands of years have been what holds value, what stores value and goes up with dollar depreciation. But, for a lot of people out there are struggling, and it's really sad to see, liberties and freedoms going away, and for us to not be able to make decisions independently and be told what we're doing and see people, I guess, at home. There's jobs everywhere. I'm sure that the same restaurants that you're going to go get appetizers last night have apply here for a job. I mean, it's everywhere. Everywhere I go, everybody's hiring.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely right. And, I wish I had said this a little while ago on the front end, because there might be people watching that are kind of like, I don't really care about finances. I don't care about economics. I don't care.
Right.
I wish I had said this a second ago, but I'll say it now for Cooper Stuff watchers. This is pertinent to me for this reason, not because I super understand economics. That's not my wheelhouse. And I'm not telling Cooper Stuff fans what they need to do with their money. Do not take financial advice from me, whatever you do. But I will tell you what I am passionate about. I am passionate about us as Christians, us as freedom-loving people, for taking control of our lives, and not just control of our lives, but fortifying what we do, so that if the worst happens, that we're going to be taking care of your family, the people you love, hopefully your church community, whatever you can do, that we can kind of fortify ourselves. I don't want to be Mr. Doom and Gloom. I'm just saying, let's just prepare for the worst here. What happens if they do? Like I just saw, we're moving possibly towards vaccine mandates to have a flight. Well, a lot of people might lose their jobs for that. That's going to affect me in an incredible way for my business. We see right now nurses that are refusing to get the vaccine. They're losing their jobs. I just saw on TV last night a group of Navy SEALs refusing to get the vaccines. And what happens if we don't have Navy SEALs? There's a lot going on. What happens with your family if the worst happens? And so that's why I am interested in gold, precious metals, of saying, okay, I have something that I own that is here. If the very worst happens, I'm not saying the worst is going to happen, but I do think it's worth educating people, Cooper Stuff fans, a lot of Christian people that watch this, to say, what if it does? Would it be prudent to look into this? Would it be prudent to do it? So that being the case, a lot of people were like me 10 years ago, where they're like, I don't even know where to start. Where do you go to buy gold? How do I know I'm not being lied to? You know what I mean? Like going to a used car shop and they're all, oh yeah, do this. It's great. And then you drive home that terrible car. And so I thought you might want to share some of why people should come to you. And we're going to be offering a discount for Cooper Stuff fans towards the end as well. But why should we come to you instead of someone else?
Well, the first thing I want to add before I get into that is, Proverbs 22:7 is what I want to mention this first. Which is the rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. And what I want to encourage anybody to do is, before you pick up the phone to buy any precious metals from anybody, including ourselves, to make sure, I would recommend pay down your debt first. Don't be buying precious metals, or I'd love to pay down debt first, period, right? I'm not a financial advisor either. I was formerly a pharmacist, but I'm just, for me, what I see is coming. The debt's, pay down your debt first. The second thing, going off of your thing about precious metals, it's everybody I've talked to, kind of has a story about maybe a grandparent or somebody that bought coins. They don't know what they're worth. They're not sure where they got them from. They maybe paid too much money. And one of the things that led me to be passionate about, educating people in this regard was, I had a grandpa that was the same way. And, I actually had started this business on the side for my pharmacy day job. And I went to a Christmas, and he told me that he had bought some gold from somebody, and he didn't know I had started a business, because one of the things that you do when you own precious metals, you don't really tell usually people that you own precious metals. It's kind of a private investment, right? So I never bothered to tell a lot of my family that I was here selling precious metals. And so what I said, well, where'd you get it from? And he heard some, radio advertisement or television advertisement, and just purchased from him. And I said, well, we got into how much he paid, and there's definitely people that will take advantage of people out there, and it's something that you need to be able to do some homework on. When you hear a radio or TV commercial, those people are typically not our competitors in our market, because our market's more of the Amazon market, where you go onto our website, you see the prices online, you purchase. You can call us, but majority of our orders will go through the website. No different than you going to Walmart or Amazon.com and buying some groceries. That's what you typically see with a precious metal company that's selling at somewhat fair, transparent pricing, right? So I would encourage those few tips that as far as going to a website, checking things out. There's some commonly purchased products that you can find. Just as a brief rundown. There's National Mint products, which are produced by like the United States Mint, the Royal Canadian Mint. You have like the Silver Eagle and the Silver Maple. Those are some of the most recognized silver and gold coins in the world. I want to start there. But then there's also these private mints that, you could start a private mint, and produce silver and gold, like pure silver and gold products. And there's some accreditation that goes along with it, some, certificates, but there's some private mints. There are going to be cheaper products out there for those products, but they're not as recognized, right? They're not as recognized as national mint products. So, what I would encourage, like I said, I would encourage everybody to pay down their debt first. And if they're interested in, putting some money into precious metals just to store value, like it has for thousands of years, of course, visit our website, call us, we'll educate you, or at least look at websites that have transparent pricing on their website. That's very important.
The only gold that I've produced this year is my new record. It comes out in January. You know what I'm saying, Tyler? That's nice. The gold I've been working on over here.
Yeah.
And you guys have killer Better Business Bureau ratings as well.
Yeah. We're 5-star Better Business Bureau. Sorry, not 5 stars. 5 stars the other reviews, but we're A+ Better Business Bureau ratings. We've been in business for 10 years. So we've grown without the use of any debt. I've seen how God's blessed the business, and there's been times where I've said, maybe I should take on debt. And I can share a quick story that there was this one. We need a new building. We've needed a new building for a while. About 3 or 4 years ago, I'm looking at this beautiful building, like this 37-acre building, amazing, 40,000 square feet. I'm like, oh wow, this would be so nice if I had this building to move into. And it's been on the market for 7 years before that. So I'm like, okay, this guy's willing to work with me on the price. Made an offer. Short story, he didn't move off his offer price. I said, well, all right, I can't do this. I went over there and prayed when I made that offer. And the song that came on the radio, it's the first time ever that I've heard this song, which is unusual. I have Christian music on the car all the time, but it was Daniel Goki, Haven't Seen It Yet. And I'm driving up this magnificent building, and I'm thinking, and it was just speaking to me, like, it's talking about the dawn and a new day, and that it was sitting right in front of you. And I'm like literally pulling up in front of this building. I felt like the Holy Spirit come on me and say, this is the building. It's got to be the building. Walked away from that deal. 3 or 4 months later, I saw a church available for sale on a real estate, site. And I'm like, oh, I can afford that. It's open floor plan, 20,000 square feet. We should buy it. So I bought it. And I said, this will work. This is within our budget. And did some stuff on trying to get it rezoned. It took a little bit of time. And then the day after I closed on the property, a pastor who I had never met before called me up and told me that he wanted to buy the church that I just purchased for our business. I'm like, this is incredible. Like, for me, God knew that I would be like, well, if a church needs it, I'll be open to talking about it. And if I can, make a couple dollars off it, maybe I can afford the building that I turned down originally. And that's what happened. I ended up flipping a church. And at that point, we made some more money on the side, and we're set to move in here in the next couple of weeks into this new building. And we did it without debt. So for me, it's understanding like prayer and patience and everything. And we've been able to grow this business debt free to what we are today. So that's another point. I just want to make sure, no debt.
That's really cool, man. I was going to ask you a couple of other things about Christian business practices, ethics. Yeah. But do you mind if I go down a different rabbit trail that we didn't discuss?
Yeah.
And if you're like, dude, I don't want to talk about that, then we don't talk about it. But I'm just curious because my brain is going over here.
Yeah.
So we know, like in 2020, now I don't know when this stuff like started,
right?
But in 2020, a lot of normal people like me, meaning people that aren't sitting on their computers researching everything ever, and what normal people, for the first time, kind of heard of like the World Economic Forum, the Great Reset. These things started coming to normal people. One of the things that's been out there is that, and I'm just kind of curious if you have thoughts on this, if you're like, hey, that's conspiracy, that's whatever. Mm-hmm. We're kind of going back to like, I'm rewinding to your national debt conversation. Mm-hmm. Some people say, hey, if the goal is to get so much national debt that it could never be repaid, then is the aim just to reach literally like a reset point with like, hey, everybody's in debt, everybody's gone way over what they could ever pay back. Right. COVID has made a whole whatever. We're just going to kind of like restart everything from zero, which would inevitably, lead towards what I suppose would be a sort of global redistributionism and things like that.
Right.
Do you follow those kind of things? Do you have thoughts of any of those kind of things? Again, I know we're talking about, and to some of us, our worst case scenario, but what do you think about that? And if that is a possibility on any sort of horizon, I don't know if it is.
Right.
Does that also lead us to saying, hey, it would be nice to have something in your hands that is valuable?
Yeah, I think those are some of the thought processes that a lot of our customers have. And in my personal opinion, I align with those things because I realize that the national debt is totally unsustainable, right? I mean, it's not possible that we're going to pay it all down, and it's worldwide. I mean, it's like everybody's united in some ways. I think lots of times it's kind of one of those things where politics has us fighting over such minute. I mean, there's some major issues, but they figure out the one or two issues that they really want to have everybody talk about, and then they continue to just print more money. Like they continue to do some things that, whether you're left, right, somewhere in between, we're aligned in a lot of ways. I mean, one of the things I do is I listen to some of the left leaning, podcasts, just to kind of like say, well, let me hear what their viewpoint is. I want to have fresh viewpoints on things, understand what is their philosophies, what's their thoughts. And a lot of times they say stuff that I agree. And then occasionally I say, no, I don't agree. But I think one of the things that they're united on worldwide, the powers that be, is they're united on running up the worldwide debt and then potentially, I think, a reset. And I think that one of the things that scares me recently, a podcast I've listened to, is that their new, I think they call it ESG, or their environmental social governance packages that they're trying to get businesses aligned with. And I've heard this come up with now with a couple, financial institutions that we talk to on a regular basis. And it's like these set standards and these rules that they want businesses to follow. And if you're going to be part of the in crowd, so to speak, that you're going to follow these rules. And if you don't follow the rules, well, then suddenly, magically at some point, you don't have any business to do because there's nobody allowed to work with you. It's kind of a lot like this vaccine thing, background as a pharmacist, where, 15 years ago, we weren't talking about any of these, COVID vaccines 15 years ago. I'm running one of the largest pharmacies in our district. And, all the pharmacists are bonused off of non-flu vaccines. And initially, it was flu vaccines when we started, right? So initially, we'd have a goal to reach by the end of the year. And if we didn't reach that goal, then that affected our performance review. We moved off of that because like the flu vaccine became more like bread and milk, where, that's just normal. That's just normal stuff. We'd start adding some more things like the MMR and all, tetanus and all, hepatitis, all these different vaccines. And, a lot of pharmacists resisted this change, and a bonus wasn't even enough. Right. So they had set a goal. I'm not sure what year it was, but they set a goal for 100 non-flu vaccines per pharmacist. And we were getting paid, I think, $25 per vaccine. And then we had to, since some pharmacists were kind of not for this sort of effort, we were having to bonus technicians $5 Starbucks cards for every vaccine they talked a patient into at the pharmacy window. And then on one conference call specifically, we were threatened to be fired as pharmacists if we didn't reach the quota for the year. Not just like, they said no pay raise for sure, and then potentially termination. And this was way before this pandemic started. I've been out of the pharmacy for about 6 years now, where I haven't stepped foot. So I think there is this push, back to your point about, getting everybody aligned in their thought process. And if you speak up against that thought process, that, you're no longer part of them, and you're no longer able to make a living. You're no longer able to get on an airplane. You're no longer able to maybe make a purchase at the grocery store. And, if you're not aligned with that, then you're out, you're an outcast. You're not allowed to live. Right. And, with the one thing that precious metals offers that's different from a lot of other assets is that it's off balance sheet. It's at your house. It's off the banking system. Right. And a lot of people may not remember that if they don't pay attention to economics on a day-to-day basis, but there's Cyprus, which is about 15 years ago as well. Cyprus was a country that was suffering, all sorts of issues. And, they did the bank bail-in route. The last time we had a banking crisis or financial crisis in the United States, we did the bailout route, right, where we just provided banks money. But the Cyprus, they did bail-in, which means that if you have a certain amount of assets in your bank account, if you're over a certain amount, well, you're privileged. Like, it doesn't even matter if you have loans or if you're maybe some of that's your customer, customers just paid you the day, and maybe it's their money. Maybe it's who knows what's going on with your bank account. But if they say, hey, if you have over X amount of dollars in your bank account, well, we're going to make you take a haircut. Yeah. And we're going to take part of that money. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make any sense, but yet it's legal. It's legal for them to do. So yeah, I mean, those are definitely points that I say, like, precious metals makes sense for a lot of our customers. Everybody's got their own, individual decisions that they make in terms of investing in stocks, bonds, et cetera. But, I think most financial people say, hey, you should at least own some, a few percent of, precious metals that I've listened to. And the other thing is, they do not make a commission on this. So the financial advisors, they typically are stocks, ETFs, mutual funds, because they make a cut every year. They make a cut off your portfolio. Precious metals, they don't. So you won't hear them talking too much about precious metals either.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think it's interesting, a lot of things you said, and I won't belabor it, but I do think that a lot of Christian people, certainly a lot of conservative people at large, are very much waking up to how far things could go. I mean, a lot of these things, a lot of what I believe today, 12, 14 years ago, I would have been like, that John is conspiracy theorist, and part of the problem, to be honest with you, is that 13, 14 years ago, I hadn't really read a lot about history. And I think that once you start looking at history and you start putting those goggles on at the time, you see the Communist Chinese Party's credit score rating, and the way that, as you said, certain people are going, yeah, if you do this and you do this and do this, you get a higher score. But if you're unwilling to do this or this or this, you get a lower score. And now you can't, engage in society or in business quite in the way that you could if you would just bow the knee to whatever regulation. So those things being the case, I do think we're in a strange time. And one of the things I've advocated for is spending money, doing business, it's things that you got to have anyway. Maybe we should be looking more at Christians supporting Christians, Christians supporting it, or even just conservative outlets in general, right? You got to buy shoes anyway, you got to buy whatever anyway, then maybe you look for people that share those sort of freedoms. Again, 10 years ago, I don't think I would have said that. I would have been like, hey, it's the free market. But now what we're finding out is that there are a lot of businesses that do not have your interest in mind, and they don't believe what you believe. And we don't just mean that in like a soteriological sense. What we mean is they don't believe in freedom the way they would want to strip your freedoms if they had the chance to do it. And so I just want to say to Cooper Stuff fans, as we get into some of the rest of the business stuff and the ethics of this, I would never tell you to go buy something from someone simply because they say they're a Christian. You need to do some homework. Are they ethical? Anybody can say they're a Christian. Yeah, do your homework and look it up. But if it is somebody that has your values, something that you could support, I think that's a really good thing. And what I like about you, Tyler, is that you're not coming on saying, pitching, you got to come to my business and do this and this and this. It's a larger picture of debt, of how the Bible talks quite a lot about not accruing debt, not, as you said from the scripture earlier, the Bible talks a lot about prudence in business, about ethics. And I personally always like doing business with someone who fears God more than they fear the legal system, because you can get around the legal system in a lot of ways. I think that's a good thing. So maybe we jump into you telling me about some of your ethics and the things that you guys are doing. I always hate to use the word give back, because you always hear it, but what are you doing to give back, if you will? What's your, your deal? What's your gig?
Yeah, I mean, so like I said, from the very beginning, we've been without debt and we've tithed, part of our profits every year. And I think a lot of people, some business owners, or a lot of business owners, I would say, like, well, you tithe from your business profits and not your individual profits. But I think it's smart, especially if other business owners are out there, C corporations, it makes more sense to tithe from the business. That's a side point. But, we've supported different Christian ministries. Like I say, some of the pregnancy centers in the area, we've supported some of the, different churches in the area. We have a church that we support in Costa Rica. And then, our last, major verbal commitment, which I think is going to go to a written commitment here shortly, is we're looking at starting a school and helping support a school in partnership with the church, providing some resources for the school, because that's something. I'm a father of 4 kids, and I don't feel like I can send my kids to public school. There's just no way I'm sending my kids to public school right now. And there's some different Christian schools that might be different opportunities in the area, but there's one specific area that doesn't have a Christian school, and we're looking to help put a school in that area, and that's a big endeavor. That's going to be a big check when we write it. But for us, it's about, the liberty and freedom and among many other things that we disagree with the public school about, and just putting, some of that back to work in our kids and the youth and educating them, because one of the things I don't think that they do a good job of, and is a lot of things, but one thing is talking about finances in school, right? I mean, I have an MBA and a PharmD. And the only thing that we ever were taught about finances was the difference between like compound interest and your interest rate on your bond, your loans, and looking at the spread. I mean, they never talked about the history of money, where money was created. The Federal Reserve, that was never mentioned. And budgeting was never mentioned either in high school and growing up. I mean, some of the things that are like actually practical information is never taught in the school system. And then they got to add in these different, different theories. They got to add in these different theories to go along with it. It's like, this is no place for the school to be in. And so right now, there's a major push for me and inside of our company is the school, is education, because I think over the last year, it was opened up a lot of people's minds on how backwards the school system is and how far it's gone. It's going to be very hard to get it back.
Yes.
All the way from K through college, right? It's gonna be very hard to get it back and build that foundation. But I think there's enough people out there right now that have their eyes open, and it may cost an extra few dollars. It may require you to move to drive your car an extra mile or two down the road. But I think it is time, like you were mentioning, where we kind of need to bond together and realize that if we're going to do this, it's going to require sacrifice for everybody. Sometimes it requires you to drive, an extra 5 minutes for a coffee. If you know that they're going to take and they're going to support the workers that have a freedom to work there without some ridiculous restrictions, or if they do make a profit, what are they going to do with the few dollars? Are they going to support, other Christians, or are they going to support some of this policy that we do not agree with? I think it's important. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of cancel culture, but when you realize that dollars do make a difference on what's being produced and what's coming out of Washington, D.C. and what's coming out of our different local governments, it is something that we need to think about.
You're preaching to the choir, but I love it. I totally agree with that. Last thing maybe that's on my mind to get before, and then you can end whatever you feel like saying. But for people that are watching that are like me, you're a normal person, you're not Mr. Economics. One of the things I thought was cool when I started looking into SD bullion is that I think I had this idea, in my mind that if you want to buy gold, you got to have $5,000. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't have that kind of money, but you can spend $35, you can spend $40, you can get a start, see if it works for you, see if it's good. I think that's kind of cool. So I don't know if you want to share anything about that or how where to go.
I mean, so we handle all sides of orders, and to get, free shipping like everybody's used to, all you have to do is that's $199. But if it's not $199, you only have to pay, I think it's around $8 and $9 for, any size order below that. We have orders that are 20 or 30 or 40 or $50. And sometimes the people purchase every week and they purchase 40 or $50. And then we have people that do put, $1 million orders just through the website. It does not matter to us. For us, it's about getting everybody, Christians especially, at least some to safeguard, a dollar to collapse or something like that. We handle all size orders. We also handle IRA orders. So if people do have an IRA, they're able to, put some of the IRA money into precious metals as well. And if you don't feel comfortable storing at your house, we have a depository that's, fully insured through Lloyd's of London insurance policy. And so you can buy your metal, not even take physical delivery, put it in the vault. If you want to take physical delivery at a later point, you can. And, we could deliver it to your house there. So it comes to you just like a normal Amazon package, like you'll purchase through a website. And, typically, 1 to 3 business days for us to ship after the payment clears. And then it usually goes out FedEx, USPS, and arrives at your door with normally a signature or tracking, depending on, the purchase size amount.
Because Cooper Stuff fans are the awesomest people ever in life, what kind of promotion are we going to do for these people watching? They say, hey, all right, I'm gonna try a little something, or I just want to do it. Maybe they start at $35 or $40, but tell us what you're going to do for Cooper Stuff fans.
Yeah. So all you have to do for exclusive discount is text Cooper, Cooper, so Cooper, to 465-322. That's 465-322. And you'll get $5 off your first order. Doesn't matter about the amount at all. So it's $5 off. You want to give us a try. And we'll also send you a beginner's guide. So a beginner's guide to kind of give you some more information. We didn't talk a lot about, the beginners and the different points, like what products you might look at. And if you text Cooper to 465-322, we'll automatically send you a link so you can kind of learn more about precious metals and gold and silver.
I don't know if my name has ever been used as a text for something. It's good. So in a similar way, if you want to look at it like this, it's almost like getting free shipping if you do a small order as well, which yep. I'm a fan of free shipping. Right. I'm like, for some reason it means something probably maybe more than it should to me, but like, oh, free shipping, $5 off. So
you're not the only one.
I can't be the only one.
We have people spending $10,000 on the website, and if they were back in the beginning, maybe they were charged $777, and that would be the huge complaint. Like $10,000, you charge me $777, like 1-star rating, and it's like, guys, come on, it costs a lot of money to ship and insure this package. It's $10,000.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Free shipping now, $199. Hope that's pretty reasonable. And yeah, like you said, you get the coupon. It's almost like free shipping on any size order. So.
Yes. 777 is better than 666.
That's right.
Yes, but depending on who you ask, I suppose. Anyway, I think that's pretty cool. So again, I just want to say to Cooper Sub fans, we don't talk about economics a lot. I mention it every once in a while because I do understand a little bit of what's going on. I would never tell you how to spend your money. But for me personally, I do believe in diversifying. I do believe in creating something for a worst case scenario, especially in the times, we're living in now. So check it out. And I hope you guys enjoy this, something a little different. Thanks so much for coming on, Tyler. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, John.
Cooper Stuff!